Hi, everyone, and welcome back. This module, we're going to talk about your readiness to deliver services effectively. In this specific topic, we're going to talk about all the small things you need to do in preparation to deliver services. Being prepared in this role is super important. Most agencies will allow you to bill 10 to 15 minutes prior to starting therapy to get yourself ready. In those 10 to 15 minutes, you should be very busy getting yourself ready. There's a lot of steps that you need to go through to ensure you're ready to deliver those services. One key to this is having a consistent checklist or program to make sure you hit all those steps. You want to just be sure you're ready to be effective. There's emotional components to this. There's kind of just your thought patterns in the moment, your mood, and you want to just make sure you're completely ready to deliver those services and focus on that individual person. Why it matters, when someone's not ready, it can really affect therapy and make the session go wrong and things not get done or only be 50% effective. You are billing for these services. Besides just the money component, the person's relying on you and the family's relying on you to provide quality services. And that's really a big goal that you should always have, is to provide quality services. Those clients rely on you. Whenever you're not prepared, it's going to lead to issues, missed learning opportunities for the client, or possibly unsafe conditions. Harmful things can happen. Each session is crucial. A lot of people might have sessions 3 times a week, but the progress you can do in just one session is so amazing in this type of therapy. So losing the progress of one session can be really harmful. The really important part of being ready is reviewing the plans and the notes. And so there's kind of 2 types of plans that each client is going to have. The first one is the behavior intervention plan. That will address any problematic behaviors and what to do when the problematic behaviors are the behaviors you don't want to see occur. And then all the things you're going to do to diminish or eliminate those behaviors you don't want to see. And then the skills acquisition programs are the skills that you're going to help the client build. They might be self-help skills, vocational skills, communication skills. So more or less, you can think of those as the behaviors. Now we want to help this person have a more independent life, a more successful life, find happiness within their life. One is how to address those problematic behaviors, and then how to increase these better behaviors. The skill acquisition depends on the setting you're in as to what those are. We will talk about that in the assessment section. It could be academic, but mainly for those who are not in a school setting, it's going to be self-help, vocational, community skills, social skills, communication skills. So you want to mentally be prepared for challenges. Problem behavior is really hard. It's emotionally draining for everybody who sees it or is involved in it. You have to be in a place where you're able to mentally prepare for that challenge of the person possibly engaging in really harmful behaviors. If you're a parent or have siblings, or if you babysat, all those things, there's those times when the kid acts out. And if you approach them with like an emotional response, their response is going to get bigger. It's just people getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And so if you approach them calmly and offer solutions, most of the time, the child will start regulating. In a lot of cases, not all cases, of course, but will start regulating their emotions and things just change. But you want to be in that calm state always during therapy. No matter what is happening, you are in a calm state. And then, gathering up materials and setting up the space. Our therapy requires lots of materials. There's often toys, board games, flashcards, like whole sets that we use for therapy. Sometimes we take kids outside and you have to make sure the things you're going to utilize outside you're moving to a lot of different settings, and then your materials, your data sheets, your clipboard, your pencil, your iPad, all those things, a timer, making sure that you have all the materials and the space ready. Your behavior intervention plan will have target behaviors on it. These are the behaviors we no longer want to see and how to respond to them. If a child engages in a tantrum, you need to be very familiar with this. It should change about every 6 months at the minimum. It might change more depending on what's going on. There's going to be reinforcement strategies outlined within that intervention plan. So they're engaging in tantrums. What we want to see them engage, they're engaging in tantrums for a function, for a reason. So for access to items around the house, like their iPad, their toys, whenever they don't get something, they engage in that tantrum. So our replacement behavior might be asking for the item. And so you'll know that that's the replacement behavior. And you'll know how to reinforce it. Be clear on what to do and what to avoid. This will be outlined in that bit. And if you're unclear with this document, you need to ask your supervisor. Anytime we're unclear what to do, because the documentation is not clear or you don't understand something, you need to ask your supervisors. You should never be walking into a therapy session not understanding what to do. If that seems to often be the case, there's two things. One, the documentation is wrong, and you need to discuss that with the team and find a way to outline the documentation better, make it more technological where you can understand every step. Or secondly, you didn't receive enough training in those areas. If that's the case, you'll want to request more training. Never be embarrassed or shy about asking for help or asking for more training. You're affecting people's lives, you're helping people, and you can also hurt them if things aren't done correctly. But to be the most helpful, if training makes you the most helpful, the ethical and right thing to do is to ask for that training. Review the skills acquisition programs. They'll identify the skill areas that a person or client needs to develop and create a program for each one. So for example, it might be like brushing teeth. There'll be a program for you to run for brushing teeth. Will you practice that skill with the individual? It might be a task analysis of all the steps, and then you're rewarding them for engaging in each one of the steps. Each one of these skills acquisition programs, and most of the time with these skills acquisition, they'll be, I've seen kids have as many as 30, which is a lot, but typically it ranges around maybe like 5 to 15 programs at one time. And so what you'll do is you don't necessarily run every program every therapy session, but you might try to run every program at least once a week. You'll know what kind of prompting you're doing for that program, what's mastery, like what does it mean when they meet it, and what's the data collection method, how are you collecting data on it. And so you'll familiar yourself with all of that before you run that specific program. And then you want to be aware of any changes or updates. So there's often a lot of updates with these because they're gathering the skills. It depends on the client. Sometimes it takes a long time, but a lot of people gain skills very rapidly with ABA. And so brushing teeth, we were really working on the first 3 steps because that was super hard for this client. But within 2 weeks, they mastered that. So we're moving on now. You have to know those updates. Okay, so most programs, or most of the time, there is these programs. You have your BIP, you have these programs you're running. You review all the data from those programs from whether it was you review your own data if it was another therapist. A lot of times there's 2 therapists or 3 working on a single person. We do that because it will help with generalization. So just because a client can brush their teeth beautifully with you doesn't mean that now they can do it with anybody. So we do that to ensure generalization. There's also these things called session notes. At the very end, a session, you write a short paragraph. Sometimes people have a checkbox system. You update on how the session went overall. It's more narrative than the data in the program. The program data will be like plus for the step I gave reinforcement. It will be very quantitative, very numbers focused, while the session note section will be more qualitative, like written most of the time. There should always be a place that you could write notes if you want to, even if there's a check box situation. So a checkbox situation might be like client's mood. How many programs did you work on? Did they make progress? You just check. You have a couple options to check. Did you see problem behaviors this session? You check which ones you saw. So when you're going to have to write these, and you always want to review all the session notes of anything that happened between your last session or now, whether it's another person or you. Look at what happened last time, review it, and then use notes to create the plan for the new session. So if there was a lot of problem behaviors reported, then you might do kind of an easy session just to eliminate those problem behaviors. Like they're saying, I saw a lot of problem behaviors on brushing teeth. So it might be like, maybe we need a new plan for brushing teeth. So I'm going to tell my supervisor that, and I'll just not do that this time. Smooth session. We are going to address it. You and the other therapist might need some supervision before addressing it to look at all the problem behaviors occurring in that program. A lot of times in session notes we write, and I have a section on kind of what to write in section notes at the very end. But hey, the client was really sick and like the session didn't go well. You might want to go kind of check in with parents, like how are they feeling? If they still are feeling sick, you might want to make a decision of whether we should do this session and talk to your supervisor about that, or maybe we're going to do kind of an easy session. It's just like you have a sick child who comes home from school, they have the runny nose, cold, and you have a lot of homework. Sometimes I write a note to the teacher like he wasn't feeling well. We only did 1 page instead of 5 pages. You want to use the session notes to kind of structure your sessions. You want to clarify expectations. So if you're unsure, you ask. If you don't know how to run a program, don't run it. If the therapy is starting, do your therapy and then immediately tell your BCBA, like, I don't know how to run this program. Can I get some more training or can we talk about it? Keep communication open. So you want to make sure that you have communication with your supervisor throughout session preparation and the delivery process. When I had RBTs or behavior techs going into a home, the first 15 minutes, I was always available on my phone so they could text. I knew when they were, and I asked them for an update basically at the end of each session. If your supervisor is not doing that, you can request support. Is there any way we could do that? Like I could be able to text you questions right before the session. So avoid guessing. To better clarify any questions or uncertainties with your supervisor, you want to make sure you're asking. Those are the things that you might need to prepare. So you're going to want to prepare your data sheets, gather all the necessary data sheets. You want to make sure you have visual aids. There's a lot of schedules we use and pictures. And so you want to make sure you have those. A lot of times we laminate those, put little Velcro on them. We do all this fun stuff with it. You might need to prepare that at your offices or the school or the center. It's fun to do and it's a good activity for behavior techs. Tokens, reinforcers, so make sure you have all your reward items that you need, and then your materials, worksheets, activity prompts, teaching tools, board games, toys, crayons. We'll talk more about that in the skills, like you might use this for this. If you're teaching this behavior, we can use these items to teach it. Set up your environment. So one really, really important thing is remove distractors. So I put my phone on do not disturb for everyone but my supervisor. You should not be able to text, read emails, or anything during therapy. That time is for you and the client. If you think about talk therapy with a psychologist, if you ever engaged in therapy, what if that therapist was looking on their phone, scrolling Facebook or Instagram while you were telling them about your emotions or problems? That would feel horrible, right? It's the same thing. Just because our clients often can't speak or express that, hey, why aren't you paying attention to me? Doesn't mean that we would do anything different than like a psychologist in that talk therapy session. Make sure all the pathways are clear. That's really important. Just for safety, so you can move around the room, set up all the material within reach. A lot of people keep a box with them and carry it around with all the materials. Make sure you're thinking about the transitions and how we're going to move people through the session. Each organization have their kind of own rules for the environment, like can there be a dog in the room? Can there be siblings in the room? All those. And so before you're in schools, that won't be as much of an issue. The school will have a setup for you that makes a lot of sense. But in home environments, clinics, that wouldn't be an issue. In a home environment, your organization or your agency had the parents agree to whatever their policies were before. You should know what those policies are and then follow that. Like if the dog has to be put away. I hear a lot about dogs. Even a friendly dog like wants you to pet him and it's taking away from the client. Make sure you're really clear on that and your parents are clear on that as well. Check yourself. Make sure that you're mentally and emotionally ready to ground yourself and work with that client. I used to take 1 to 2 minutes just breathing. It centered me and made it so I was 100% focused on the client. And honestly, doing therapy to me was a mindfulness exercise. So is testing kids. So I do a lot of cognitive and academic batteries with kids. It's a full mindfulness exercise. You are 100% focused on that person and not focused on anything else. I never think about anything else. And we are completing the tasks that we need to complete together. And whatever they say, I'm right with them. You need to look at it like that. A real mindfulness focus on your client during that time. And you are calm, focused, and professional. The troubleshooting tips. Missing materials. I have a notepad and I'm writing things I need to text my supervisor when I was a behavior tech. If there's missing materials or I want an alternative, and then I text them at the end. So I don't take time away from the client in that moment either. Unclear on a goal, review documentation or ask. The space isn't ideal. So you want to workshop with your supervisor how to create a space. I put that smoking thing because that is also an issue. I've had RBTs not want to be in a smoking environment. I understand that. I don't either. But there are people who smoke. So again, your agency has to come up with a policy for that and figure that out. Sometimes that's placing the right RBT in that home if smoking is kind of non-negotiable in that household or whatnot. Like there's some solutions for it, but like all those small things you want to work out with your agency and your supervisor. This is a readiness checklist. A lot of times agencies already have them. You could utilize this to create your own and bring that every single time. Eventually you memorize it and it might seem redundant to check things off every single time. But this is kind of a good place to start if you want to just utilize a slide to make one. Okay, thank you. I'll see you next video.